This is the Cedar Creek Church Living It Out podcast, a midweek reminder where we discuss key takeaways and principles from the weekend message to help you live out the truth that you matter.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Living It Out podcast, a weekly podcast to help remind you that you matter and help you live out that truth throughout the week. My name is Casey Greenewalt, and I am your host today. It's so good to be back. Summer's been a bit crazy for me. I've had some weeks off here and there, but I'm pumped to be back here with Mark Ward, our Senior Director of Next Steps. And today we're also joined by our campus pastor from the White House campus, Sean Bellner. Sean, thanks.
Welcome, Sean.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude, you had a first this weekend, man. Tell us about that.
I did, yeah. So this weekend was the first weekend that I was able to present a message from our Perrysburg campus, our broadcast campus, out to the other locations and online, and it was awesome. I had an absolute blast. I did have a rookie moment during the 11 o'clock service. Forgot to turn my microphone on when I went out on stage. So, I think there should be like a 6-step check process. Make sure your fly is up. Just make sure you've got this checklist before walking out. Microphone on would be on that checklist. So yeah, it was a lot of fun though. Just being able to talk and do that. I absolutely loved it.
Dude, you did a great job, man. I really was impressed. I just listened to your message a few minutes ago again and just to kind of refresh myself. And you did a great job, man. You presented content really clear and you communicated really well. So thanks for gifting our church with a message that I think a lot of us probably needed, which we'll talk more about here in a second. But Sean, I'd love to hear a little more about the process, because some people, they see you up there and they're like, how did you know what to say? Or you didn't have notes, or like, how'd you prep? What was some of the easiest parts, your favorite parts of prepping? What was tough? What was frustrating?
Yeah, so honestly, the easiest part was coming up with the topic. The hardest part was putting the content together for the topic. So I think that, everybody right now is experiencing some form of stress. And for many of us, it's coming in at different levels. And when the one thing I didn't dive into that stress really is, it's triggered by an event or a thought. And so that's pretty much anything. And that's what we're all experiencing. I mean, whether it's work or home or school or family, and for some, it's multiple things. So the hard part is trying to get all this content that you have down into a portion, because really I could have probably talked about an hour on this content and still been going. So that's hard, honing it in. But the process really started a couple weeks ago, starting to put an outline together. Really for me, it was a script. I script everything and then I turned it into an outline. And so my script was about 7 pages. My outline turned out to be 2 pages. And quite honestly, part of that process is having amazing people around that help you in that process. So I think when I get up on stage and speak, I have a lot of people go, "Hey, thank you so much for what you delivered." And the reality is, it wasn't just me. I mean, there was a team of people that helped me put this together. And so what that looks like is, a couple weeks ago, I went into the campus and at Perrysburg, I presented, and there was a group of people that gave me feedback. And they're like, "Hey, this is great. You might want to think about changing this." And working through that. And so you get that feedback, you rework the outline. And then this past Wednesday, I had gone in and I did a pre-record. So for many people, you might not know this, but we pre-record the services on Wednesday in case anything happens to the speaker between Wednesday and the weekend. So you still have a message to listen to. And it's the same process. You deliver, you get feedback. And then it's really, at that point, it's polishing and getting it to where it is to be presentable on the weekend. And yeah, so that was probably the most intense part and nerve-wracking part, was delivering in front of your peers who are giving you feedback. And Casey, you've been there before, and yeah. So the whole process though is amazing, because really what you get on the weekend is the final product of a lot of work that goes into it weeks ahead of time, and the teamwork that it takes to pull off a message like that. So
Sure, man. Sure. Thanks for the insight there. I think it's helpful just to know that, right? Like, it does take so many people, and I love watching our team embody the value of being better together. Like collectively, we're going to be able to produce a way better product than we could by ourselves. And that's so great, man. Well, you crushed this weekend. Your story you started off with, we'll dive into some conversation here. I'd love to hear from Mara on this one too. Your story was about your son Trip. I know you got two sons, and Trip is your youngest son. And Trip, apparently, the dude can sleep wherever, like just falls asleep wherever all the time, which was pretty funny to see pictures of places that sleep. But I guess for you two, like sleepwalking, is that a thing for you too, Sean? Maybe Marna, do you have any experience with sleepwalking? You a sleepwalker?
No, I have to tell you, Sean, that was, I mean, I was absolutely cracking up when you went through that. Thank you for all the pictures. It was hilarious to think of like just all the different places you guys were. And honestly, no, like I don't know. Sleepwalking hasn't been a thing for, thankfully, I think for us or our family. I mean, some sleep talking definitely, I think that kind of falls in there a little bit, but man, your little man, like, boom, he can just make it happen.
It's impressive. And so Casey, no, I don't sleepwalk. I don't sleep talk. Like this was something new for our family. That Allie and I experienced, and that wasn't the creepiest one story that I shared. Like there were some other ones that have really just woke us up, startled us straight out of our sleep. And yeah, so he does have that ability. Paxton, um, he doesn't do really any of that stuff. He doesn't sleep talk. He doesn't sleep walk. He is like once he's out, he's out. Another hard part was picking the pictures. I mean, I had so many pictures that I could have shared that I'm like, which ones do I choose for the content today? So
Well, and it sounded like you had a lot of people who reached out to you with hilarious stories. Like this is actually like a topic that struck a chord.
yeah, it is. You would not believe the amount of stories I jumped on. The 7 o'clock service online. I watched the 1 o'clock, and just to see some of the people responding with some stories was hilarious. It is more of a common thing. I did not realize early on in Trip sleepwalking days, like you don't wake somebody who is sleepwalking. We didn't know that, so we luckily we never did. We just got him back to his bed, but apparently it's kind of a dangerous thing. So little info for you: don't wake a sleepwalker. Throwing a slipper at someone when they're sleeping and they're walking isn't a smart idea. We did not know that.
So it's funny, you're right. I think everybody knows somebody that maybe has dealt with that or sleep talking in some way. Actually, a little side note, Josh Whitlow, campus pastor at Perrysburg, he like sleep talks out his dreams all the time. It's the weirdest thing.
Oh, there we go.
So I hear all about it. It's weird. Maybe he'll share a story in a message at some point in time. But I had a friend growing up whose little brother would sleepwalk. And Sean, similar to you, like our experience with it, we didn't know what to do. But as we got older, we realized like, don't try to wake him up, just put him back in his bed. Because there's something about a sleepwalker, they look like they're resting, but they're not. And I think you segued into that conversation really well this week. Just like a lot of us, we say we're okay. We say we're at peace. We're fine. We're good. You know, like even you two, when you said hi to me today, it's like, how you doing? I'm great today, right? Like it's just the easy response. But a lot like sleepwalking, you're not actually resting when you're sleepwalking, right? And so as we, I guess, dive into that conversation, a question for you two, when it comes to rest, like genuine rest, how would you categorize yourself? Do you feel like you get more than enough? Do you feel like you struggle with it, or do you feel like you don't get rest at all? Or maybe that's different in different seasons too for you guys.
Yeah. I'm in a season where I'm doing pretty well with this. So I would say this is again sort of this wonderful gift of when your children are now older, is that you just are like, okay, well, it's my bedtime, so mwah, I love all of you and I'm going to bed. Like I can't even begin to describe to you the massive shift that starts to happen. Like, cause for a while you feel like maybe you should be up, like, and then you're like, wait, I'm up at 6. I can't like, so there are definitely nights that I try and stay up and hang out or whatever. But so I'm in this wonderful spot in my own parenting and in our own household that my kids, I mean, Cole at 10 years old obviously still has a bedtime, or I think obviously for me, I guess. And then at 13, you're starting to kind of give her a little bit more freedom. And our 16-year-old, you're like, I mean, you got a job and a life, and so she's got to be able to work it out. So I'm in good space. I'm in good space. How about you, Sean?
Yeah, that's awesome, and I do think it comes in stages, especially when you're a parent. When you don't have kids, you have this ability you can stay up as late as you want, you can go to bed whenever you want, and get up kind of whenever you want. Unless you're going to be late for your job. But the stage of life that we are in, I mean, my wife and I, it's like we get our kids to bed, and then Marna, you touched on this a little bit. We're in that stage of going, we stay up later just
Yes.
so the two of us can hang
You
out.
have to. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where we're at when it comes to rest, Casey. To answer your question, I think rest really is more. It's more than just sleep. So when you think of rest you can have, yes, physically you can fall asleep, and then it's going to help you rest, kind of everything. I mean, mentally, physically, but I talked about letting go, and really we have a hard time throughout our day of letting go. But when you rest, you really do let go of everything. I mean, you are giving your trust over to going, I'm falling asleep, I'm trusting that nothing is going to happen to me while I sleep. And so you've got that, but you have the mental side of rest, and you have the physical side of rest added to it as well. So depending on the day, I would say depends on whether or not I'm getting adequate rest, good rest, or bad rest. And I can bounce back and forth and go. I had a procedure done last month, and my doctor said, hey, the only thing that is going to heal your body is rest. So I had to get physical rest in order for me to heal. But mentally, there were days where I wasn't actually getting mental rest because I was thinking about the talk and the message that I had to deliver. And like, I'm in recovery, I'm off for, I was off for almost 2 weeks. And I'm like, I've got a message coming up. So mentally, I could not mentally rest while I was physically getting rest. My vocal cords had been damaged in the process. So from like the breathing tube, and doctor's like, what are you doing later? And I was like, well, I'm going to be speaking at the end of the month. He's like, good luck. So I was like, I wasn't even sure if I would have a voice to speak by the 11 o'clock service. And going, the only thing that's going to fix that is rest. Like, you have to rest your vocal cords. And then when it comes to physical rest, when it comes to mental rest, then, I mean, when you think about the fact that you go into, maybe it's a meeting, and you're in a meeting for X amount of hours, and what do you say? You're like, my brain needs a break. Like, I got to rest. And while your physical body is okay and you're not straining anything, you don't need physical rest. You need mental rest. So it goes beyond just taking time to sleep. I know I dove into the sleep side a lot this weekend and stuff, but I think that does need to, I think people need to be aware of that as well, of going, it's more than just letting your body lay in bed. I mean, there are times you'll be on your phone and you think you're resting, and it's like, I'm scrolling through, but my brain actually isn't in rest mode, because, and I talked about it this weekend, it's like I see something and that kicks my stress in. Right? It's an event or a thought that will trigger stress. So I can see something, I can then think something, and then my stress level will rise. So
I love that.
When I'm thinking about it, it really does depend on the day and kind of what's going on that day. But
the phrase that came to mind as you were talking through that, Sean, was like, it's like our thinking brain. It's like that. Does that ever have a rest from all, like you said, the thoughts and the everything, or the circumstances that we're facing? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you made a great point too, Sean. The idea, you defined rest as letting go, and you can't let go if your mind is still working. So you're not actually going to find a full rest. You can find the physical rest, and I think that's a great point. But I think both of them are connected, and you talked a lot about that this weekend. And then you segued a little bit into a pretty popular story from Mark of Jesus, and a moment where he's finding rest, and you're like, why are you resting, right? This is a pretty popular story where we oftentimes look at Jesus and go like, what is this dude doing right now? Like, what is going on in his brain? But as we're about to do, and you unpack the story, you see that Jesus really, he gets it. he's truly found rest. Like you said, Sean, he's truly let go. So real quick, Sean, if you wouldn't mind just like kind of unpacking the story, and then a little bit kind of talk about in what ways were their reactions, like, and Marna can comment on this too, were they similar to ours when we experience a storm in our life?
Yeah. So when you take a look at the story, and again, this is in Mark chapter 4, verses 37 through 40. That was the key section of what the talk was based around. And when you start breaking it down, you go, okay, the disciples, they're looking at Jesus going, like, the dude has narcolepsy. Like, he's just sleeping through the storm, when in reality, Jesus knew God enough to trust him in the middle of the storm. And for me, it's continually thinking though of going like, and part of the talk this weekend was helping people understand, to go, look, Jesus, the one who is with you, was also the one who created the storm. And not didn't create the storm, he created the wind and the waves, is in the middle of the boat with you. And so he is in the middle of your storm. And the correlation between us and the disciples in that moment was that frantic, that freak out, and that frustration that they experienced in the middle of the storm. I mean, how many times have you seen someone going through the exact same thing that you are experiencing, but they're handling it a completely different way, and it makes you frustrated? Like, you go, why are you not like, you want them almost to respond the same way that you're responding in the moment, and because it makes you feel better about yourself. It's like, I'm freaking out about this, I'm frustrated, I'm frantic, and why are you not? And if you can get them to join you in that, then you're like, I win. Like, I feel better. It almost but that's the reality. We feel like if we can get people to join us in that, then it makes us feel better about the season that we're in. And almost like I feel like sometimes I might be taking crazy pills. I'm like, should I be freaking out about this? Because you're not. But that's kind of what the disciples were going through. I think a little bit of going, they're seeing this dude sleeping at the back of the boat with his head on a cushion in the middle of a storm, and they're frantically trying to get the water out of the boat, and going, why are you not concerned? And he knew who God was, and he had his peace in that. And I think for us, it's a good reminder in that moment to look and go, it's the turn to him. It's that be still principle, and it's to trust him with whatever you've got going on in your life. I saw somebody post, and they're like, I loved it, I just can't rest. And I'm like, that's a miss. Going, when you don't feel like you can take a minute to rest, just try 1 minute, a moment, just 1 moment to rest. If you can't do that, the stress is taking over. That was a realization for me this week, really kind of throughout as I've been building this talk. I was telling the other campus pastors, I said, I'm not going to pick a talk like this again, because it's going to be like joy in the middle of a season of awesome. Because I realized I'm putting a message together on stress, and I was feeling almost nothing but stress. So guys, I'm telling you right now, I was taking my own medication as as I was putting this together. I'm like, yeah, I need to turn to him. I need to be still. I need to trust him in the middle of what I'm going through. So that's probably a long answer to what you were asking, but
Oh, that's good, man. That's real good.
I love it.
Yeah. Marna, any thoughts on that for you? I guess, like, in what ways the similar reaction in storms?
The only thing I was going to add is I think it's that, our overwhelming sense, and even like the disciples, like, are you going to do something? Like, I don't even care what it is. Like, 1, wake up. 2, get water out of the boat. 3, I mean, just that sort of thing. And I think, to your point, Sean, we want to elevate people to a level of like, we all should be doing something, even if that's frantic and frustrated and like frenzied activity, then at least we were doing something. And that's I think that turn, like you said, to that life of faith and trust in him. I mean, we're all in a spot where we need to be reminded of that, and even hold each other accountable a bit to that, because I think that's that activity, or I'm guilty of it. I just want to get after it. And there's got to be something that we can do. And here in this moment, while there were practical things that they could do, they were missing, to your point, Sean, the larger, really what honestly was going to change their life and be available to them way beyond that storm, and way beyond that one particular moment. So.
Yeah. Sean, I love the way you unpacked that story. I thought it was really helpful to look at it through that lens and think through what that looks like for us. So your bottom line this weekend, though, was to be our best, we need to rest. I was messing with you and calling you a poet, but it rhymes, and so it's easy to remember. And it's super simple, but also really, really hard. We talked about how rest is letting go. Dive into that a little more. What does that look like for us in our everyday life?
Yeah, it's like when I was putting the message together, it was one of those pieces. I'm like, is this too simple? And like I had asked the question, and then I'm thinking like probably not, because we don't do it. And if we did, then and that's it. Is people they'll look in at something and go, well, I know that. It's like, well, intent without application is worthless. Like you have great intention, but you don't actually do anything with it. So what's it worth? It's worth nothing. And if we can understand and go, hey, if we want to be our best for our family, for our friends, and for our work, and yes, it really needs to probably go in that order, then we need to be able to have the ability to let go. And we really do struggle with letting go. And one of the pieces that was kind of like an aha for me is going, if I don't feel like I can rest, it's because I don't feel like I can let go of something that I'm trying to control, which leads me to then going, if I'm trying to control something, I'm not actually trusting God with that area of my life. So yeah, the to be your best, you need to rest. Letting go is really that. It's going, what are the areas in my life that I am holding on to that I have been trying to manage on my own and under my own power, and I haven't let go. Because when we slow down and are able to take a deep breath and we're able to let go, that's when we know God more personally. And that's really what it helps us take a step in, is going, no matter what I have going on in my life, no matter what is happening around me, I know that even in the middle of the storm, however long this storm is going to be, I know God more personally, and I know He's there with me. And the stress that we feel it's real. I'm not trying to say that it's not happening. I mean, we know it is real. And I think it was before we jumped on this, we're talking about just all the changes that everybody's experiencing right now. And the changes are coming faster now than they've ever come before. So you have your mandates from schools, parents are getting that. I mean, changes from church. So you're getting emails from schools, church, work. I mean, I was talking to somebody and they're like, man, like every week they're an essential worker. They're like, every week, one person said every other day we're getting new updates and changes and mandates of what we have to do and step into. So you have all of this different pressure that's coming in, that's raising the stress level.
Yeah.
Good.
I think too, I mean, I think the important piece too is that that doesn't mean that there's not hard work to be done. That doesn't mean that there are not areas where we are really going to have to do above and beyond anything that we thought we could do. But I think, Sean, you were kind of pushing on this, is that where am I starting from? You know, and so that's, I think that one of the things that I'm hearing you really kind of hit on is that if this rest piece is real to us, it really means that we can, number one, we can take the 60 seconds twice a day and we're okay, kind of thing. But that we start to really have that mindset shift of, yes, there is still all of this to do. Yes, it is still something I've been called to do, but from what place am I starting from? So I think that's really important too. It just doesn't mean that we're sitting on our hands and like, well, I mean, God's got it. And I mean, He does, but we still play a role in that too. And I think that that's a lot of the be still, is we start to see our role more clearly. We start to not control the things that are not ours to control, but still recognize that we have influence, there's work to do, and that He's called us to these places. So it's it's nuanced for sure, but man, you can tell the difference in people, I think.
And the piece to it too, you go stress. Sometimes there can be healthy stress in your life actually that is going to help you move forward. It's what helps kind of push you
Yeah.
to that next phase. But if you're not careful and you don't have these built-in moments to pause, to be still, to find rest, I think they call it like stress rebound. Like you actually don't have this ability to rebound from the stress that you're experiencing. So what ends up happening, the Cleveland Clinic had done a study where for both men and women, you get chest pain, you get muscle tension, you get headaches, you get stomach challenges and issues. So it actually physiologically changes your body in a negative way if you don't allow yourself to rebound from stress. So it is so important as we talk about taking moments to and that's why it's like, seriously, take a minute, like 2 minutes a day to be able to do that. Work yourself up. Go from 2 minutes to 3 minutes to 5 minutes to, in doing stuff like that is going to help you build these rhythms, because I think a lot of people, they have physiologically things going on. They're not sure where it's coming from. And it's because they haven't rebounded from the stress that they've been experiencing. And then another stressor comes into their life and your body can't function like that. So you have to give your body a break. And that's why the rest is so important.
Yeah.
Like in order to be able to pick up the work again, you got to let it go and be reminded that you're not carrying it by yourself. Because when you are carrying it by yourself, it's really easy to forget that there's a God out there that cares about you and is helping you run this race and do the things that He's set before you. But if you don't stop and rest, you don't get the complete picture of who God is. And you let it go and be reminded that, like, ultimately this is in His hands. Sean, you gave another example this weekend, and we can hit on this and then kind of wrap things up. But you talked about how a movie, like we watch a movie, we never worry about Indiana Jones. Like we never worry. Did you talk about that this weekend, or am I thinking of something completely different?
You're thinking something else. I'm like, if I was talking movies, that's new. But hey, keep rolling. I'll roll with you.
So get this. I was listening to a podcast like before this that was so similar to what you talked about. And it was like all these ideas are blending together, and it's good because it's good content. But he was talking about how, like, when we watch a movie, we freak out for Indiana Jones, but we don't, because we know in the end how it all kind of plays out. And it doesn't mean that like our life's going to be like a movie. It just means that God's looking at our life as if like he knows the whole thing, like He sees it all. And I thought that was a really helpful analogy. Sorry, I tried to credit you with that. I guess you didn't come up with that one. So no, I think it was Henry Cloud.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Hey, just for anyone who's listening, when you're getting multiple messages of the same thing from different voices, it's really time to pay attention.
So what's really funny is a buddy of mine is a pastor out in Pennsylvania. He is speaking August 8th and 9th. And I asked him, I said, hey, what's your topic? And this was 2 weeks ago. I asked him, and he goes, it's on rest. I said, huh, that's funny. I'm speaking on rest, like this weekend. And he goes, oh my goodness. So I sent him my outline, and I told him, I said, steal whatever you want to steal. I don't care.
I love it.
It's awesome. But I think that the concept, though, is so true. We have to learn to rest. We have to learn to let go. And it's not from an apathetic, I don't care about it place, because that's not healthy either. It's from I can't do this. I recognize I can't do it, and I got to take a second and just be reminded that I'm not in control of everything. And I think, Sean, you did a great job this weekend of reminding us of that. And you also pointed us throughout your message to some great tools that as a church we have available for you. And there are other things and practices too that I'm sure we could talk about. But the Living It Out is an incredible resource. I get it every single day. It's a quick, easy read and just a quick reminder of who is in control and to trust God with your day. Another thing you talked about too is the verse of the day. I don't know if you know this, Sean. That's like my reading plan right now in this season of life. Is I read the verse of the day and I reflect on it for about 30 minutes every morning, and that's like my favorite part of my day. But it helps recenter myself, and it helps me rest and helps me let go. And I'm sure you guys have different practices or stuff. But if you're listening and you don't have something in your schedule, I had a leader of mine that said to me, if you don't schedule it, you won't do it. And it's totally true. Open up your phone right now. Close the podcast, open up the phone, and schedule time tomorrow, today, to rest, to let go. Because if you don't schedule it, you won't do it. And this is it's so important. You're not experiencing the fullness of God if you don't experience rest. Any other closing thoughts for you guys as we kind of wrap things up here?
No, I think, Sean, thanks so much for stepping into that space that, like you said, people, me included, can sometimes take it for granted. Like, oh yeah, it's about oh, wait a minute. So thanks for giving us some space to just revisit some of that, how important it is for it's not to just be a one and done, but to have a couple times throughout our day too, where we're taking that moment to just recenter, like Casey said. I loved that app suggestion. I think I'm going to use it as a way to just go, okay, what did I pray about this morning? Just come back to those spaces and then just pick up and go again. So thanks for that. I love the super practical in the midst of, oh, like, yeah, it's simple, but it is so profound and it has such depth that we could be still before God. So thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage you guys to just take a step. Like, it doesn't have to be something big. I know sometimes it can be intimidating when you're like, I don't have any sort of plan in place. If you're watching this podcast, you probably have a little bit of a plan in place. You don't even realize it. But going, hey, it doesn't have to be anything extended. Like, it can be, Casey, you mentioned doing the verse of the day, and I know there are mornings I wake up, and that is the first thing that I do is I'm making that a habit of mine to go, I'm going to read the verse of the day. I have the Bible app, and I'm going to read the verse of the day. If you don't have an app, and you have the Bible sitting next to your bed, use that. Just open it up and read a verse. But and you can just start by taking that step and make that a habit. And yeah, that pause app I have been using now for about a week. And the cool thing is it times, like, it'll say, hey, I know I've spent 20 minutes in be still moments over this last week, and going, okay. And it's really cool. It's cool just to see, to go, how much time have I actually spent this week to be still. And it's tracking that for me. I think if you have an Apple Watch, I think there are moments throughout the day that, I don't have one, I'm not that cool. But there are moments that you can actually set. It reminds you just to take deep breaths. And in those moments, take your deep breaths and learn in that time as well to be still. And yeah, it is so key for me moving forward in our relationship with God. It gives him control really of our life, and it helps us in the end too.
Yeah. Good. It's good. And as you guys can hear and listen, all of this is so connected, right? Like our physical rest, emotional rest, it all ties into how we're wired spiritually. And so that's why this conversation is important. And so this week, just like Sean said, take a step. It can be simple. It's hard, but it can be really simple for you. Yeah. We got a couple things coming up. Before we do that, we want to celebrate. One of our values as a church is we celebrate progress. And just similar to the idea of resting, is we like to stop, look back, and celebrate the things that God has done, to be reminded we're going to continue to do those things in the future. And so this weekend, we had 14 baptisms across our campus. I know one girl at the Perrysburg campus, her name was Lindsay. She was the first one to get baptized. And Jamie, too, is from the Perrysburg campus. Just a couple little name drops there. I don't know anybody else from the campuses, but that's the Perrysburg campus. So we're celebrating those. And then next week, as we continue in the series, The Summer Side of Life, my good friend, I'm super pumped, Sarah Bucher is going to be teaching next weekend. And I know Sarah's been working long and hard on a message all about surrender. And then August 8th and 9th, the plan right now, we are planning to reopen that weekend, and we'll be starting a series called Where is Norm? Because I think a lot of us right now realize that normal just isn't really around anywhere. And we don't want it, maybe we don't like the new normal, but we have questions about it. And I'm excited for a conversation around what normal is and what that means for us as followers of Jesus. Marna, Sean, you guys have any other last thoughts, jokes, things you want to make fun of me for?
No, well, there's a lot there. You make it pretty easy, but we'll hold.
Deal.
Same,
Awesome.
Casey.
Thanks so much for listening. Again, this is a Living It Out podcast, and it is our hope that you are reminded that you matter and that you can live out that truth this week. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.